Hey guys, Dr. Rosie. I am here recording my radio show I do every week on KBXL and also KIDO, and I'm going to be talking today about toxicity and one of the biggest things that we see with today's health. So I'm going to be recording here, so excuse me, and we'll continue with this show. So hi, and welcome to Maximize Living Radio. This is Dr. Rosie Main, and I'm here today talking about toxicity and how it impacts our health. And I know that many times people want answers for their health, and unfortunately, they get to the point where they get frustrated. I have this topic today because sometimes the circumstances in our lives affect us and we grow from them. And many of you know my husband suffered from neurotoxicity. Some people may know that I had practice in Caldwell here in Idaho, and also my husband we both practiced together. And he actually got to a point where he got very sick and we couldn't really understand what was going on. He was chronically ill all the time, and he was fatigued, was continuously anxious, and got to the point where he did not want to practice anymore. He became very anxious to even see people, come into contact with people, to the point where one time, even going into Lowe's, he sat in the parking lot just contemplating whether he should go in or not, because he would get anxious for no reason. And of course, in our marriage, because of this, it created a lot of strife. And I got to a point where, I was just questioning what was going on with my husband. That was not the man that I married. And unfortunately, God always brings us an answer. We just continue to seek him first. And so he mainly, we got to the point where he was very irritable. I would walk in at the door and any kind of noise would startle him or get him on edge. And so I started to pray for an answer. And luckily, we found a man that helped us so much. And still to this day, I credit all my stuff that I do with neurotoxicity to Dr. Dan Pompa. But he actually gave us a big solution. We started to realize that by his help, my husband was toxic. He had heavy metal toxicity. And so the issue with just our health today is that we see so many times people struggle not only with issues neurologically, like my husband with depression and anxiety and chronic fatigue and all these things that was happening to him, but we also see people suffer with hormone issues and also anxiety and depression set in. And unfortunately, people get stuck on a rut of just another pill, another thing that's thrown at them. And so this is where I have an urgency every time I come on this radio show or here on these Facebook posts to try to give people answers, because the fact is a time and place for drugs, but the reality is that God does not make junk. He put an amazing power in our body to heal, and when we try to look for answers, God will show us. And so I want to bring you some solutions today with these kind of issues, because the biggest thing we're seeing today is that we're toxic, and it is creating a lot of issues with the way the hormones in our body function, with the receptors on the cellular membranes that listen to these hormones, the way they work. And so we're seeing a lot of neurological deficits, obesity issues, you name it, with even kids with all the problems they're having with learning disabilities and autism because of toxicity. And so I want to talk about this topic today, not just for the sake of weight loss, but the sake of health. And we know that there is so many things that creates toxicity in our body. And if you think of it, the body has been designed by God to remove these toxins. But if you just think of a bucket being filled up, for the moment that we're even in the womb with our mom, and whatever toxins that mom had are actually seeping into our body as a baby, and then before you know it, we're out of the womb, and before you know it, there's more things injected in us, or we have issues with now, more things that are given to us because somehow we have been told that we're unequipped and that, man knows more than God. And so therefore, we get more things thrown in at us stress or more toxins through the medications that we give our babies, and then more of the medications. And then before you know it, you start growing up in a toxic world. Now, not only, of course, we see more issues with EMF problems, like our kids are literally, we give them an iPad and cell phones, and so you get the environmental toxins, but then you get the toxins that exist not only, of course, of processed foods, which we all hopefully know about this on this platform, but the problem is that it builds up, and before you know it, by the time you're a teenager nowadays, most teenagers are so sick. They're so sick, they're so depressed, they're so anxious, their bodies are not functioning, they're having more hormonal issues, more problems with weight loss, they have more problems with anxiety and depression, and again, they go to the doctor and another pill is thrown at them. And so this is where I want to make sure you understand that this is not God's way, and it's we need to go back and look at what truly is causing these issues and removing those interferences. So we have to remove those interferences, not only from our foods, but everything in our household start to be changing, and how these toxins affect our health. And this is where, you know, the truth is that the fact that these toxins are really destroying not only our the way our bodies are functioning, but the brain is one of these things that my husband was so sick with heavy metals that by the time he graduated from chiropractic school, this is a guy who, you know, eats right, he exercises, he does all the right things, but he had no clue he had issues with heavy metals. And so when we talk about, you know, removing interferences in the nervous system, subluxation or interference in the nervous system is number one. But what we're seeing now more than ever, other than emotional traumas, is also chemical stress. And so these toxins that were trapped inside my husband, and this is why I talk about it, because I have a heart for this topic. He was so toxic that when we tested him with heavy metals, he was off the charts in not only mercury, but he was off the charts in like 10 heavy metal, such as aluminum. He had cadmium, he had, I mean, you name it. He had so many, and he was off the charts. And so I was able to talk to, you know, at that point, Dr. Pompa, Dr. Dan Pompa is the guy that saved my husband from all this stuff. But we started to not only find answers in these heavy metals by doing a test that actually reveals what is going on in your body, because see, these toxins bind to fat, and the most important fat, and my husband at that point was like 6% body fat. You know, he was just he was an athlete, and so he had no fat, so everything was going into his brain. And so before you know it, you know, this man that, you know, was very simple to get along with became a very irritable man, very anxious, and just he quit practice. And so this is where, you know, these things hang on to the brain, start to alter the way your brain functions. And so we really see a lot of times these sicknesses and diseases, not only obesity and all these other things that we're seeing, is because of neurotoxicity. And so we want to make sure we start finding out what the solutions are, and not just go to the next stinking drug, because that's what we were told, that he needed to get on Prozac, and we were not going to do that. So we found the solution was to get rid of these heavy metals. And so luckily, you know, we got to the source. But these toxins, guys, and this is the thing, is heavy metals like mercury are so detrimental to our health, not only to, you know, just the fact that it messed them up emotionally, but it also messed him up, you know, physically. He had the fibromyalgia symptoms, and he had the chronic fatigue, and all these labels, these new millennium labels that people, you know, just get tagged with and then just get a drug for. So we basically were able to then start to not only chelate it from his body, but from upstream from his brain. And so there's ways to do this, and of course there's solutions for this. But let's say hormones. Now with women with obesity, the issue with this is that if you actually are so toxic and you want to lose weight, and the frustration comes from the fact that, you know, most of the time these receptor sites are so bound by these toxins, so they can't even listen to the hormones that your body produces. But the problem is typically upstream too. Not only at the cellular level, you actually get these toxins bound to the hypothalamus, which is the main control center of your body. And so what happens at this point is when your hypothalamus is then bound up with these toxins, these toxins then don't allow your hypothalamus to release the precursors to other glands in your body, like your thyroid. So then you have your hypothalamus not being able to talk to your pituitary gland. Before you know it, that's blocked as well. And then your endocrine glands end up being blocked as well. So it's kind of like a chemical subluxation per se. You know, you have physical subluxations in your spine that interfere, but then you have chemical things such as these toxins that interfere with your body's ability to function the way God designed it. And so then unfortunately, once you go downstream and it affects the thyroid or your sexual organs or whatever the case is, now you're at the doctor with these newer symptoms, thyroid issues, you know, sexual problems, whatever it is. And so then before you know it, then you get put on something for that, or unfortunately, most people nowadays that walk into my office have something ripped out. And so either be it thyroid or sexual organs or, you know, and so this is the thing is that God doesn't make junk. He put an amazing power in our body to heal. We got to go back and look at what's interfering with the body that's not allowing the body to function the way God designed. And so this is where we always talk to you, you know, if you're listening here for the first time, if you want to make an appointment, if you're here on the radio, I'm recording my radio show as we speak, that, you know, there's solutions and there's answers to this. And so this is where in our process here with the 5 essentials to health, we always look at what's causing that. Is there physical interference? This is where as a chiropractor, we know that, you know, you can look at people who eat right and exercise, but there's physical interference. Your body's not going to function the way God designed it. So we always looking at what's causing nerve interference. Maybe there's emotional stresses. Maybe there's toxins that are coming from, like we talked about, heavy metals that are not allowing you to reach your goals, because even though you want to go work out, you're so fatigued that you can't even do it. So this is where we got to look at what's causing those interferences. You know, BJ Palmer, the founder of chiropractic, said, you know, there's thoughts, traumas, and toxins. And that's what we always go back and remove those interferences. So if you've never gotten your nervous system checked, please, you know, make sure that you go to a chiropractor, go to a Max Living doctor, you know, do something to start changing your life. Start somewhere, but you want to get your nervous system checked. And we give you the opportunity here on this radio show or on Facebook. We do it for only $40 to get the first consultation, see what we can do to maybe start helping you in these areas. And so we do this. You can call me, you can put a message here. My number is 208-859-6170 for those that are listening on the radio. Also follow me on my Facebook posts. I always urge you to do something to act now. Don't wait and start acting and changing your health. Now, going back to this topic on toxicity and how it interferes, there's 3 things specifically that you can start changing to help just your body remove it in there's 2 phases to detoxing. There's a brain and then there's a body. If you can just start somewhere, and I think this is where people just need at least 3 things that they can do immediately. And I think that number 1 thing is inflammation. And many times some of these hormones or these hormone receptor sites are so inflamed. And so what's happening is there's 3 things that causes inflammation at the cellular level. You know, you want to get rid of those things such as sugar. I mean, processed sugar is one, but just sugar altogether. I think that the fact is that we're designed to have, you know, real sugar. We're going to have sugar from, you know, fruit sources or vegetables or, you know, things that come from what we call God food or real food. You know, get rid of the processed junk. Number 2 is get rid of the bad fats. Go back and eat actual real fat. And what is a real fat? Is like coconut oil, avocados, raw nuts, those things that are real food, not processed. And last one, of course, is toxins. I mean, in general, we talked about, you know, heavy metals and all that, but in general, there's toxins that are even in your household cleaning products or in the stuff that you use, you know, your aluminum and your deodorant, or whatever it is that you choose to put on your body, make sure that it's real and do the best you can. You're not going to live in a bubble. I mean, I still dye my hair, I'm vain, but the fact is that you do the best thing that you can to try to remove these interferences. And then the next step is also understanding that there's some toxins and things that are affecting our health. Just as we know right now we can't control all the EMFs, but you can control some of them. I mean, at night we turn off the routers, or we actually have a wired house, but when we're not using the wireless, we're turning them off. You're doing the things you can to protect yourself and protect your family from these things that are really creating a lot of inflammation in the body. And so you go step by step and start acting on that. I think that the next step as far as toxins, and I think that most people can probably start to understand, is that if you are going to do any dental work, and I'm not a dentist here, talk to your dentist. I have amazing people I can refer you to. But if my husband was so toxic because of heavy metal toxicity that came from heavy metals from his mouth, he had 10 silver amalgams. And if you guys don't know about these silver amalgams, but the reality as an adult, the number 1 source of mercury is going to be through silver amalgams. And so that's going to be number 2 thing to do is just start doing what you can to remove the things that are in your body that are going to start to create even continued toxins to exist. So every time you chew hot or eat or drink hot liquids, these heavy amalgams, these heavy metals seep out from your amalgams into your brain. These things go straight directly to your brain, right by your nerves, your facial nerve. You have these nerves that are directly going into your brain, and so make sure that you're getting rid of them, and you go to a good biological dentist that knows how to do it properly, because that's the thing, is that sometimes even by taking these things out, you can aggravate some of these symptoms. Number 2 is root canals too. Is with the mouth work, you want to make sure that you're taking care of whatever root canals you have. This is one of those things that people don't realize, that even some of these root canals have some heavy metals within it. So talk to a biological dentist. Another thing that we do in our household that helps with just toxicity or limiting toxins is using an air diffuser. We have an air diffuser that helps eliminate whatever air pollutants in, and it has different levels. You have different levels of air diffusers. Make sure you start somewhere. Another thing would be a water filtration system. Most people understand that our water is so toxic, but yet starting somewhere, whether it be as simple as a Brita filter or a reverse osmosis, you can go to an overall whole house system. But the thing is, you got to start somewhere. I think that's the thing, is that people don't act and because they want to do it all. Just act on one thing. And I think if you just start with what's under your nose, and then go in there and what's inside your house. And so another thing that I feel that most people don't realize with toxins is the things that you do with like perfume. I know so many times people that come into my office who have multiple chemical sensitivities typically are sensitive to odors that come from fake perfumes. So get rid of those. For sure, one of those things that really affect people who have issues with even heavy metal toxicity. My husband, if he walks in any store that has some kind of artificial scent, where those Glade, households have those Glade inserts into their electrical outputs, these things put off a lot of chemicals into the household, creating issues. Now, sometimes people ask me, well, why do some people express symptoms and why don't others? And that's a very good question. Some people have very good, efficient ways to excrete some of these toxins. And there's 25% of the population who can't. they either genetically can't detox as fast as the others. And so you have to understand that there are some people who are more susceptible, but we're all going to be, no matter whether you're more susceptible or not, we're all going to be affected by these toxins. So the best idea is to just start eliminating some of these things, even if it doesn't affect you. I had no, symptoms with heavy metals. But the truth is when my husband got tested, I decided to get tested, and lo and behold, even though I didn't have the symptoms and I was more tolerant, I still had heavy metals, not as much as he did, but I still went ahead and removed my amalgams, removed my root canals. I still went ahead and did the process, not overnight, through years. This has been years of just everyday, constant, never-ending improvement. And that's what we say in our office. You never stop doing something. Whether you have a disease, whether you don't have a disease, whether you have a labor or no labor, doesn't matter. You start acting as if you want to be the best you can, no matter what the result is. And that's another thing that sometimes people start to change, and if they don't see result, they quit. And the thing is how can you expect your body to really change if you quit? It's a process. This is constant, never-ending improvement, but also consistency, persistence. So this is the thing that has to happen. It's time and repetition. Just like faith, it's not overnight. Time and repetition. Just like chiropractic, it's not overnight. Time and repetition. The same thing with everything we do. It's time and repetition, and you keep doing it no matter what. And it just takes hard work and persistence. And I think this is the thing, that people want things too quick. The truth is, my husband still, at this point, God knew what he was doing. He actually, when he quit practice, he started to become this man who wanted to just heal his body. So we went to all avenues to try to help him. We went to Spain. We went everywhere to try to get the solutions. And luckily, God provided all the answers that we needed. And about a year after he got some of the toxins out, I myself got toxins out, we had been trying to have children for about 8 years. And we got married in 2000, and we hadn't been able to have kids. And of course, this story is going to make me emotional, because the truth is that God is so big. I prayed that one day that he would give me kids, and that he would give me the desire of my heart. And I said, okay, God, at one time when I was praying and I was on my knees and I was frustrated because we weren't able to have kids, like, I'm fine. When you're ready, you're going to give me kids. You're going to give me twins. And I wrote it down in a journal. And we kept going on with this whole toxicity thing and cleaning our bodies. And lo and behold, about a year after I prayed that prayer, that war prayer, I call it, I got pregnant. I had no idea that I had two until they were born. And I went back, and I remember, going back, my kids were in the NICU for 2 months. They were premature, but going back to that journal. And sure enough, the desires of my heart were met. But not only that, I believe that I got my husband back. And at that point, he had already quit practice. He had a plan. My husband decided to stay home with them, and has now they're 11 years old now. He's been homeschooling them. He's 100% shifted the other direction in his health. Has amazing energy, just loves. Right now they're in jiu-jitsu, actually doing a class together. This is what God does. You pray, you seek him first in everything you do, and he answers your prayers. And then you go find solutions, and you start removing those interferences. And faith without works is dead. You take faith and you take action, just like that woman in the Bible that was, bleeding. She knew that Jesus could heal her. She knew that if she just touched that cloak, but she had to act and push through the throngs of people who were probably spitting at her. And that's the thing, is that don't give up. You go seek and save yourself, seek and save those who are lost, and tell others. So if you're listening to this and you want answers, call us right now. If you're wanting answers, you can call me to make an appointment. Typically the cost of this is $180 to make the first assessment. We do the neurological evaluation of your spine first and your nervous system. Then we do a nutritional assessment. All this typically is $180. We do it for only $40 at our office. My office is in Meridian Main Health Solutions. Again, I'm going to wrap this up on my radio show. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you guys on Facebook here for listening. Like this page and also share this information. And we hope to see you at our office or at a next event. We have tomorrow our Keto and Fasting Challenge Seminar at my office, and also upcoming in September, we're doing our Detoxing from Heavy Metal Seminar that we're going to be doing there on the 24th. So register for that on Facebook or on my Eventbrite page. And thank you. God bless.